Hello, this is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Thank you for taking a few moments to listen in. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go up to Utah to shoot in studio with a really good friend of mine, Andrew, on the Money Is podcast. What we're going to do this week and next week is take a small portion of the podcast, about 16 minutes today, of that particular podcast and put it on our platform. What we're going to talk about here in these next few minutes, you're going to hear some dialogue on at least a little bit of my perspective on why business owners either succeed or fail. Hope this particular podcast will bring you value. I would encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, to do so. And especially if you haven't listened to the Money Is podcast, I'm going to post in the podcast notes the link to the entire podcast. I would encourage you to support their platform. Once again, appreciate you taking a few moments to listen. Hopefully this podcast will bring you value. Have a wonderful day.
And what I want to do is talk about, dude, give us some advice behind the scenes of all these companies you've ever seen, not the company's names, but there's a ton of stuff that you've learned through 20 years of what's worked, what hasn't worked, what made a company successful, what did not make a company successful, what you thought looking at it was like, oh, this is a really good idea. And then 2 years later, they're out of business. I want to go kind of behind the scenes with you on all this advice. All this knowledge and wisdom I think you're sitting on, and I'm going to try to extract it from you today.
Let's
How about that one, dude?
Sounds like fun.
That is not a tax podcast at all. I want to go straight at business advice here with you, man. And I know you do some consulting at Lodestar to a certain degree now. So, okay, let's back up. In the process of all the taxes you've done, let's try to find some common core principles or common denominators that you see. Let's talk about successful companies first. When you are doing, again, I'm saying the taxes, just behind the scenes, when you see these companies that are just successful, they're thriving, they're growing, they make money, what are some of the principles or common core features you see that are very synergistic amongst those companies?
Well, I think when an entrepreneur or somebody who desires to be one anyway,
Sure.
or desires to start a business, usually they're coming with it with a lot of passion.
Yeah.
So they're coming with it, and with that passion, many times comes a lot of emotion.
Okay, it's true.
And most of the time, business is not successful because of the emotion that business owner has.
Okay.
It may help fuel it, but it's not because of that emotion. And when a business owner kind of goes in and starts a business and they make all of their decisions based on emotion,
Okay.
They end up really truly setting themselves up for failure. And I can go in a little bit deeper on that. So when you think about, and this is probably an overused analogy, but when you're going in and building a house,
Okay.
a lot of times, if you sit down with a husband and wife and they're wanting to build a house, that person that's selling you the house many times is talking about, this is what the house is going to look like. They're thinking about the aesthetics. Maybe if there's a husband and wife, the wife is worried about what color drapes are we going to have,
Mm-hmm.
what carpeting, what hardwood floors, what is that going to look like, and that's all kind of emotional. And but you need that person there that is kind of reminding you the most important part of that house is that foundation. So what are we building this house on? And the same thing is true with the business. A lot of times business owners have a wonderful idea. So they're coming with it, they have this tremendous idea that they want to monetize on, or maybe it's not even just financial. Maybe they're wanting to make an impact. Maybe it's a nonprofit, they're wanting to make an impact. But we understand that money is needed to fuel all of that. Or needed essentially to achieve some sort of level of success. There is a money element. Money is kind of always in the middle. But if you're going into that business and all you're thinking about is the grandeur of success, and you don't take that necessary time to address the foundation, what's truly important, so you're not essentially building that house on sand, but you are taking the time to making sure that it is built on something sturdy before you build that business up. The business owners that take that time and get those people around them and listen to that helpful advice are usually ones that will achieve success.
Okay, so I'm following you. I want to go a little bit deeper with you. I'm going to play the role of just kind of that viewer, right? When you talk about as an entrepreneur, and I understand you're saying emotion and passion, and you talk about that foundation of the house, right? And you're referring to the business owner has to make sure that, the business owner has to make sure their foundational structure is strong so they can grow. When you say foundational structure for a business, what are you seeing those key elements right there of the foundation?
Okay, so when I'm talking about that, yeah, we can talk about structure, and I'm not necessarily meaning
right. Tax,
tax
LLC
and
structure,
LLC,
no.
all that stuff. We could get into that, but I think your listeners
I'm trying to avoid that right now.
Yeah, they may shut it off pretty quick because it's not a very entertaining conversation. But when I talk about that, meaning is you aren't making your decisions based purely on emotion. So you're going through and you're taking the time to making sure that the decisions that you do make in every aspect of the startup of your business is one that is going to be there regardless if you're feeling it that day or you're not feeling it that day. So really having those principles of business in place to which are going to hold firm. And in taking maybe even going a step deeper is truly understanding what is the purpose, what is the vision that you have. Understanding first and foremost, what is that vision? Simon Sinek, the whole start with why. Sometimes it may be a start with a who, but whatever is the reason why you're doing what you're doing, that is part of that foundation. That is there and that is kept in front of you. So you understand the vision, reminding yourself of the vision, reminding your team of the vision consistently. And then everything else gets built around that. Understanding what are your core values. Because once again, if your emotion sometimes will pull you away from your core values. So then you end up acting in a way or building your business in a way that is contrary to who you are and where you're wanting to go because you're trying to achieve somebody else's idea of success, or you're trying to achieve some sort of status, maybe it's fame, whatever it is. You always consistently have to go back to those core values. What is the vision? What is the mission? What is the direction you're truly wanting to go? And what is success truly going to look like for you? That may or may not involve financial success. That may or may not involve being an influencer or achieving fame. But if you're consistently going back to whatever that foundation, whatever those foundational principles are for you and what you want for your business, if you're consistently going back there, you'll make better decisions.
Yeah, so you're again getting into the point of what you're saying as a business owner, entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur. It's very, very important to take a pause and nail down that foundational structure of what are my core values that I'm trying to build this business off of, and then what is my vision of where I'm trying to head with this thing. And that vision changes. I don't think you're saying vision for 50 years. But what is my vision of the product, the company that I'm building out right now? Where am I heading the next 1 year, 3 years, 1 month, 3 months down the road? And making sure everything aligns back with that vision, that purpose, that drive that's inside of it. So that it's not ran off of purely emotion of wherever the day brings. If it's rainy, sunshine, got an argument with somebody, didn't get an argument with someone, had a great cup of coffee, didn't have a cup of coffee, and you're making decisions based off of those things.
Well, you see, if you read, and I know you're very well read as well, but when you read a lot of successful, not just business owners, but leaders inside of a business structure, maybe somebody that's in the C-suite, and they put books out there and they talk many times maybe about their weekly meetings. And we were talking about weekly meetings here a little bit ago. And one thing you'll see many successful business owners do in their meetings, it doesn't matter if it's at a sales meeting with the marketing team. It doesn't matter if they're talking about their IT department, their finance department. It doesn't matter, or if it's the C-suite themselves. In every time they meet in that weekly meeting, the very first thing they do is to remind themselves before they even get into the conversation of why are we here, what is the purpose, what is it ultimately that we're trying to accomplish. And that becomes the focus point or the focal point of every single one of those meetings and every decision that they make.
Yeah, it's funny. I built that new my planner. I don't know if I've shown it to you or not, but in it, because I at this point in my career, it's just most of my life is meeting level, and I got to the point where I couldn't find a planner that had in it a section just for all my meetings. Like, this is what I'm doing, and so I built this planner, and in it I have my meetings. Section that I literally custom built for me. And the very top question, I ask certain questions before I go into a meeting of what is the purpose of this meeting? And then what is one of the questions I have there is, what is the main kind of point I'm trying to drive home in this meeting to the team, to whatever it is? And then what is the main thing I'm trying to take out of this meeting? Meaning, what am I trying to leave with in this meeting? And I fill this stuff out before I ever go into the meetings, so that I'm very, very hyper focused into what we're supposed to be getting accomplished inside of it. It used to be a thing where, dude, I would have a meeting and I would go for 5 hours straight inside of a meeting, because it was like, let's just keep going and finish this and finish this and finish this. But you can't solve everything in that one meeting. And a lot of these meetings that's why they're weekly meetings, because it takes freaking time to push through everything inside of it. And you brought up a great point, because I want to ask you this question, because you see so much behind the scenes. You see all these leaders and CEOs of these companies, successful and failure. And you started to mention some of it right there, like kind of a successful point that you see is that these leaders of companies that are successful have that meeting process. What other kind of things are out there that you see? Are those leaders of successful companies, are they super high in integrity? Are they extremely organized? Do they wake up early in the morning? Do you see any other things that are kind of common core in those? And the leaders of the companies?
I think number one is that maybe, I don't know if there's necessarily a common thread, but I think for that business owner to reach that level is they need to have a true understanding of their authentic self, of who they are, understanding where they're wanting to go, and be willing to be transparent with people they put around them, to be able to, first of all, for them to be self-aware enough to understand these are areas of business or of life even, because a lot of times they overlap, that maybe I struggle with. And to be able to be transparent, to be vulnerable enough with those individuals that are around you, to be able to help you, that maybe they're strong in those particular areas, to be able to help you as an individual. Because if the foundation of you yourself falls apart, then the business is going to fall apart. I see this over and over again with clients that we work with, and just working with other business owners, even if they aren't clients. When there are other issues going on outside of the business, personal issues, whatever the case may be, it almost always impacts the bottom line of the business.
Interesting.
And you wouldn't think that, okay, the owner of the business, they're going through marital issues, or they have a child that may be having drug issues, whatever the case may be, and when those kind of situations end up impacting the business owner, almost always we see a really hard negative impact on the bottom line of the company. And you would think, okay, well, this company has 150 employees. Somebody else can step in.
Why does it one?
For some reason, that it ends up impacting the culture of the entire business.
Wow.
And I don't know if there's something that can be clearly defined. It just seems to, at least from almost categorically from the businesses that we work with, that we see the numbers, that when there's an issue at the top, even on a personal level, that it ends up impacting the business as a whole.
You see companies that fail. I've had, and you were my CPA during the time in 08 and 09 when my whole real estate stuff was just absolutely tanked to the bottom. When you see companies that fail, take away your big things of market or whatever it is, if you will, but what are some of the things that you see inside of companies that fail that maybe we that don't get to see 1,000 companies? What do you see inside of those companies?
Well, I think of the old Zig Ziglar line. Failure is an event, not a person.
Interesting.
And so we all have, and we look back, and I can, you know a lot about my past.
Yeah.
Some of the very, very difficult situations that we uniquely have gone through. I know a lot of your past as well. And I guess we can make this podcast really interesting with you into some of that. But one thing I think that we, first of all, understanding that we are not going to succeed in every aspect of business.
Yeah.
And we are not going to succeed in every aspect of life either.
Yeah.
That we are going to have moments where we're not going to succeed. A business owner, when they go into business, that thinks that it's going to be easy, that kind of, because there's a lot out there that people I don't think realize. Most people that are employees their entire lives don't understand the difficulties and the pressure of getting into business. That you need to realize that it's just like having another child.
Yeah.
That it is. If you go into it not understanding that this is going to be extremely hard, that that it's going to take a great deal of discipline. It's going to take a great deal of work. It's going to take sometimes being up all night. It isn't just coming in, I'm gonna be the business owner, I'm gonna hire these people, I'm gonna pay them, and they're gonna do my business for me, and I'm gonna spend all my time working on the business. This line drives me nuts. Well, you need to work on your business instead of in your business. Well, that's true, but when you first get into business, guess what? You are the owner operator, and you're gonna be there for a very long time.
You're the janitor, you're all of it.
And understanding at the front end that you're gonna have to fill in all those 4 quadrants. You're gonna have to do the things that you don't wanna do, that you don't like doing. And it's going to really be a grueling process. And then you have to be willing to stick it out. So business owners, when they first get into it, and Eddie Wilson, who I don't know if you've had on this podcast,
sure.
but obviously very good friends of both of us, he talks about when you get into business that you need to have a set determined amount of time and a certain amount of resources or money that you're willing to invest in this. So when a business owner goes in, and we talked a little bit about the foundation, but when they go in and they have not defined those 2 areas for themselves, I am willing to give this X amount of time, and I'm willing to invest this amount of resources into it, and they have a plan on what that looks like, how that money is going to get spent, how those resources are going to be deployed, to make sure that there is a clearly defined marketing strategy, because when you're in the startup phase of business, it is all about cash.
Right.
That's where all the metrics, everything can be focused on is cash. Where's that cash coming in? Taking ownership of how that cash is going to get deployed, whether it's their cash, somebody else's cash, and then understanding these are the metrics that I need to hit in the short term. And then if I hit this time to where, I've run out of time, I've run out of resources that I defined on the front end, and it's just not working, be willing to pull the plug, remembering that that I may have failed at this, okay, but it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It's just an event that maybe I wasn't cut out for this, maybe it wasn't the right time for this idea, maybe I didn't plan correctly, whatever the case may be. But truly understanding on the front end how much time and resources am I willing to put into this, put together spend enough time planning before you end up getting into it. Because if you just jump into something and say, I'm going to build this thing, I'm going to start borrowing all this money without that plan, without that roadmap, then the business will ultimately fail.